another grammar point with me, Teacher Katie. In these videos, we dive into the details of English grammar to see how it works. Let's get started. Okay everyone, we're talking about modals, or also known as modal auxiliaries today. Another word for these are helping verbs. Now, there's one thing I want to say off the bat that's really important, and that's that modals are always followed by the base form of a verb. So, what are some of those modals? You probably already know some of these words. Can, could, may, might, should, had better, must, will, would, have to, have got to, be able to, and ought to. Now I do want you to pay attention to these last four modals. You'll notice that they each end in the word to. Now I want you to think of each of these modals as a unit with the word to. So if you've got a base form of a verb following all of our other modals, these ones, it'll be easier for you to remember that it still has a base form after it if you think of have to as being a unit in itself. Now that we've had a brief overview of modals, and you've learned one of the rules, which is that they always need to have a base form of a verb after it, I've got a little test for you. Take a look at these 5 sentences and decide which one of these is correct. Number 1, he should to drink some tea. Number 2, he should drank some tea. Number 3, he should drinks some tea. Number 4, he should drink some tea. Number 5, he should drinking some tea. If you answered number 4, then you're correct. And you can see that this is because of our first rule of modals. We need to make sure we're using the base form of the verb. So number 1 is incorrect because we have the word to. Number 2 is incorrect because it's the past tense. Number 3 is incorrect because it has the third person singular s. And number 5 is incorrect because it has the progressive ing at the end of it. So remember, it needs to be the base form of the verb. Let's do another practice. Which one of these 5 sentences is correct? She has to finish her homework. She has to finish her homework. She has to finishes her homework. She has finished her homework. And number 5, she has to finishing her homework. Well, this one should have been pretty easy if you remembered that has to comes together as a unit, and after that we have our base verb. So remember these 4 modals, have to, have got to, be able to, and ought to, have the word to following them. I want to point out how number 4 was incorrect because it did not have the word to. Also, it's important to note that these 3 modals can change based on if our subject is singular or plural, and based on if it's third person singular. So you can see the first 2 have the word have, and so they could change to has if the subject requires it. Same thing with the third one, be able to. We would change be to fit any of our subjects, whether they take am, is, or are. It's now time to learn a couple of other rules about modals. You already know the first one. Modals are followed by the base form of a verb. And you saw several examples. Here's one more. I should talk to him is incorrect because it's using the past tense form. Our second rule about modals is that only one modal is used per main verb. So you can see, I should can talk to him is incorrect because we have 2 modals there, so we should eliminate one of them. Our third rule about modals is that modals do not change form, except for have to and be able to. You'll learn more about that in a different video, but it is important to know that these are the only 2 modals that can change their form based on whether or not they want to express present, past, or future tense. So here's one example of modals do not change their form. You can see I couldn't talk to him. This is incorrect because modals must stay in the form that they are in. Our fourth rule about modals is that they do not have infinitive or participial forms. So, I, to May, talk to him is incorrect because a modal does not have an infinitive form. Our fifth rule is that in questions, modals take the place of do or does, and these words are not used. So here's one example of that. Does could you talk to him is incorrect because we do not use do or does in questions. And finally, our last rule about modals is that in negative sentences or questions with modals, the words don't and doesn't are not used. So, I can't talk to him is incorrect because don't is not used in negative sentences with modals. Alright, here are those 6 rules of modals again. If you want to pause the video to write them down, you certainly can, but it's time to move on to do some practice. With our practice time, there are 4 steps. First, I want you to pause the video, and then I want you to get a notebook and write down your answers to the questions. After you've answered all of the questions, then go ahead and hit play on that video and you can check your answers along with me. Let's get started. Here I have 8 sentences, but all of them have errors. I'd like you to correct them so that they can use modals properly. So now's the time to pause the video and write down your answers. Alright, let's check your answers and see how you did. Number 1, I can't paint very well becomes I can't paint very well. Number 2, does she can go to the party on Friday becomes can she go to the party on Friday? Number 3, I ought to read more books becomes I ought to read more books. Number 4, he should to study harder becomes he should study harder. Number 5, I musting work Saturday and Sunday becomes I must work Saturday and Sunday. Number 6, could you telling me how to get to the bank becomes could you tell me how to get to the bank. Number 7, what songs do you can play on the guitar become what songs can you play on the guitar. And number 8, I may can finish my project by Friday becomes I may finish my project by Friday, or possibly I can finish my project by Friday, depending on what you mean by your sentence. So, it's now time to talk about different types of modals. There are many different types of modals, and the confusing thing about modals is that some modals can communicate more than one type. So, let's start by looking at the various types. We have certainty, ability, possibility, necessity or obligation, permission, advice, and future. Modals are used to communicate these different things in a sentence. And now we'll look at each different type and see which modals are used to communicate each meaning. So, with certainty, we would use modals like must and should. For ability, we would use can, could, or be able to. Possibility, we would use may, might, or could. Necessity or obligation, we would use modals like must, have to, have got to. For permission, we have can, could, and may. For advice, we have should and ought to. And of course, for future, we have will, and also we have would, which is used to communicate conditional or the future in the past. So, these are the main types of modals out there. We'll explore these deeper in future videos, but for now it's just important to know that modals are used to communicate different meanings based on which modal is used. Alright, it's time to do some extended practice. Here are those modals again that we looked at the beginning of the video. I'd like you to choose 5 of the modals below and write 1 sentence for each one. That would mean 5 total sentences. You can make any sentence that you like, Or if you want, you could make a question with these modals. Thanks for watching. This has been a Grammar Point with me, Teacher Katie. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them below. And remember, if you're currently taking one of the courses, please submit your answers to the extended practice section using the link that was provided to you at the beginning of your course session. That's all for now, and until next time, keep practicing English!